March 19, 1942, Krupp's Essen factory, Germany. Engineer Ferdinand Porsche knelt beside a spread of blueprints. His calloused fingers traced the curved outline of a 1,000-ton Land Cruiser. The air smelled of machine oil and hot steel. A distant steam whistle pierced the hum of forges. This was no ordinary tank design. It was Hitler's steel monster, the Panzerkampfwagen 8 Ratte. Porsche's team had spent 6 weeks refining every dimension. Now they waited for the final nod from Berlin. At noon, a messenger in a crisp Wehrmacht uniform arrived. He handed Porsche a sealed envelope stamped with the Führer's insignia. The order inside was unambiguous. Prioritize the Ratte. Build it fast. Build it unbreakable. The idea of a super heavy tank was not born in a vacuum. Since World War I, military planners across Europe had dreamed of land battleships. Vehicles that could crush trenches, withstand artillery fire, and turn the tide of ground combat. Germany's defeat in 1918 had left a scar. Hitler saw the Ratte as more than a weapon. It was a symbol of Nazi might, a machine that would make the Allies tremble. This will be the weapon that breaks their lines, he told his generals in a February 1942 meeting. Nothing there can stop it. But for Porsche, the dream was quickly colliding with reality. A 1,000-ton vehicle was beyond anything engineering had yet achieved. Porsche's initial design was audacious in scale. The Ratte would stretch 35 meters long, longer than 3 railway cars. Its hull would stand 11 meters tall, tall enough to tower over a 2-story building. The turret alone would weigh 200 tons, the same as a small destroyer's hull. At its core were 2 main armaments, modified 280mm SKC-34 naval guns, the same weapons mounted on Bismarck-class battleships. Each gun could fire 300-kilogram high-explosive shells 20 kilometers, far enough to hit a target from the edge of a city. 4 anti-tank defense. For 128mm PaK-44 guns will be mounted in secondary turrets. 6 37mm Flak 43 anti-aircraft guns would fend off enemy planes. 10 7.92mm MG-34 machine guns would cut down advancing infantry. Armor was equally extreme. 250mm of face-hardened steel on the front hull, thick enough to stop a 122mm Soviet artillery round, 150mm on the sides, and 100mm on the rear. Even the turret roof would have 80mm of protection, a safeguard against dive bombers. But numbers on paper meant little without the engineering to back them. The Ratte's weight was its greatest curse, and its greatest challenge. To move 1,000 tons, Porsche selected 2 Daimler-Benz MB5 03V 12 gasoline engines. Each produced 1,200 horsepower at 2,800 revolutions per minute. Together, they would drive the tank through a complex transmission system to 8 tracks, 4 on each side, each 1.2 meters wide. The tracks were a marvel in themselves, made of nickel-chromium molybdenum alloy steel. Each track link weighed 1.5 tons. They would distribute the Ratte's weight across 36 square meters of ground, preventing it from sinking into soft soil. But even with this design, the Ratte's top speed would be just 20 kilometers per hour on roads, slower than a soldier's brisk march. Off-road, it would crawl at 10 kilometers per hour. Speed was not the goal, though. Invincibility was. Krupp's Essen factory, Germany's largest arms producer, was tasked with construction. When the blueprints arrived in April 1942, foremen stared at them in disbelief. No one in the factory's 80-year history had built anything this large. The hull required steel plates 10 inches thick, far beyond the capacity of Krupp's standard forges. The company had to modify 3 of its largest furnaces, lining them with special refractory bricks to handle the heat needed to melt 20-ton steel ingots. Welders were pulled from other projects. They trained for weeks on thick steel joints, using a special flux cord wire that could penetrate 50 millimeters of metal in a single pass. A single hull weld took 12 hours to complete. Any flaw, a bubble, a crack, meant starting over. "We're not building a tank," one welder told a colleague. "We're building a mountain of steel." By June 1942, the first hull frame was assembled in the factory's largest bay. It stood 8 meters wide, its steel beams glinting in the overhead lights. Workers used 50-ton cranes to lift each section into place. The frame alone weighed 300 tons. To reinforce it, engineers added crossmembers made of hardened steel. These would prevent the hull from twisting under its own weight. But even with the reinforcements, the frame sagged 2 centimeters when left unsupported, a sign of the stress the finished tank would face. The engines arrived in August, shipped by rail from Daimler-Benz Stuttgart plant. Each engine was 2.3 meters long, 1.5 meters wide, and weighed 1.8 tons. Workers used 2 cranes, one at the front, one at the rear, to lower them into the hull. Connecting the engines to the transmission was a nightmare. The transmission, built by ZF Friedrichshafen, had 12 forward gears and 4 reverse gears. Its gears were cast from high-strength manganese steel, each tooth designed to handle 5,000 newton-meters of torque. But aligning the engines with the transmission took 4 days. The shafts had to be perfectly straight. Even a 1 millimeter misalignment would cause the gears to jam. When the system finally turned over in a test, the noise was deafening. The engines roared. The tracks creaked. But the Ratte moved, if only a few meters. Hitler visited the factory on September 5, 1942. He arrived in a black Mercedes, flanked by his top generals. He walked around the hull, his boots clicking on the concrete. He ran his hand along the steel plate, a smile spreading across his face. "This is what I'm talking about," he said, his voice rising. "A weapon that shows the world what Germany can do." He demanded the Ratte be ready for combat by March 1943. Porsche knew this was impossible. The prototype was still missing its turret, its weapons, and most of its internal systems. But he did not dare contradict the Führer. "We will do our best, Mein Führer," he said. "The Ratte will be ready." Work accelerated. The turret was built in Krupp's Kiel shipyard, where naval guns were normally manufactured. It took 12 weeks to cast the turret's steel shell. The 280 millimeters guns were mounted in October. Each gun required a hydraulic recoil system to absorb the force of firing. The system used 50 liters of oil per gun, stored in tanks built into the turret's rear. Testing the guns was a spectacle. In early November, the turret was mounted on a temporary frame. A single 280 millimeters shell was loaded. When fired, the blast shattered windows 2 kilometers away. The recoil pushed the frame back 3 meters. Engineers realized the Ratte's hull would need additional bracing to handle the force. They added 10-ton steel counterweights to the turret's rear. It was a stopgap, but it would have to do. The turret's rotation system was another challenge. The turret was too heavy for manual turning. A hydraulic system powered by a separate 150 horsepower engine was installed. It could rotate the turret 360 degrees in 45 minutes, slow, but faster than nothing. To cover blind spots, Porsche added a secondary turret on the Ratte's rear. This turret mounted a single 128mm PaK-44 gun and could rotate 360 degrees in 15 minutes. It was a small concession practicality, but one that might save a tank in combat. If you found this interesting, give a thumbs up to show your support. Drop a wonderful in the comments to let me know you're still with me. Stick around till the end, because I'll reveal 3 mind-blowing facts you won't want to miss. Haven't followed yet? Hit that follow button so you won't miss our next deep dive. Trust me, the best is yet to come. By December 1942, the Ratte was finally taking shape. The hull was sealed. The engines were connected. The turret was lifted into place and bolted down with 100mm steel bolts. The tracks were fitted, each link secured with 20mm pins. Workers installed the crew compartment. 20 seats arranged in 2 rows, a small kitchen with a propane stove, a toilet, and a first aid station. The crew would need to live in the tank for days at a time, a necessity given its slow speed. But conditions were cramped. Each crew member had just 0.8 square meters of space. The engine produced so much heat that the interior temperature could reach 40 degrees Celsius. Ventilation fans were added, but they barely reduced the stifling air. Carbon monoxide levels were another risk. Even with filters, the air inside would become toxic after 12 hours of engine operation. On December 15, 1942, the Ratte rolled for the first time. A crowd of workers and military officials gathered to watch. The tank's engines roared to life. The tracks clicked and clattered. It moved 100 meters across the factory yard, leaving deep ruts in the asphalt. The ground shook with each step. When it stopped, the crowd cheered. But the celebration was short-lived. The engines had overheated, their temperature gauges pegged at 120 degrees Celsius. The hydraulic system for the turret leaked oil. The left rear track had loosened, threatening to slip off its sprocket. Repairs took a week. When the Ratte rolled again, it only moved 50 meters before the transmission failed. The gears had stripped under the tank's weight. Porsche's team realized they needed a stronger transmission, one that could handle 1,000 tons of stress. ZF Friedrichshafen was ordered to redesign it. The new transmission would take 3 months to build. The delay was a problem. The Eastern Front was demanding more tanks. The Wehrmacht needed Tigers and Panthers, vehicles that could fight in the mud and snow of Russia. The Ratte was a drain on resources. Each ton of steel used for the Ratte was a ton not used for a Tiger's armor. Each hour of labor spent on the Ratte was an hour not spent assembling a Panzer IV. By January 1943, Albert Speer, Hitler's armaments minister, began pushing to cancel the project. "We need tanks that can fight today," he told Hitler in a heated meeting. "Not monsters that may never see combat." Hitler refused. "The Ratte is our future," he said. "We will not abandon it." Speer compromised. He diverted 30% of the Ratte's materials to other projects. Workers were reassigned to Tiger production. Progress on the Ratte slowed to a crawl. By February 1943, the prototype was still missing its secondary turret and most of its anti-aircraft guns. The 280mm main guns had not been calibrated. The crew compartment lacked proper insulation. Porsche begged for more resources, but Speer stood firm. "Finish what you can," he said, "but the Ratte is not our priority." Allied intelligence soon got wind of the project. In March 1943, a Dutch spy working in Krupp's Essen factory sent a report to London. It described a giant tank with battleship guns. British military planners were skeptical. A 1,000-ton tank seemed like a fantasy. But aerial reconnaissance flights over Essen confirmed the spies' claims. Photographs showed a massive hull in a reinforced bunker. The British Royal Air Force planned a bombing raid to destroy it. On April 17, 1943, 24 Lancaster bombers attacked the Krupp factory, but the Ratte's bunker was built to withstand 500-kilogram bombs. The bombs bounced off the concrete roof. The Ratte emerged unscathed. The raid convinced the Allies the Ratte was a real threat. A commando team was dispatched to sabotage it. On the night of May 2, 1943, 6 British commandos parachuted into the countryside near Essen. They snuck into the factory, avoiding guards by hiding in freight cars. They planted plastic explosives on the Ratte's engines and transmission. The blast destroyed one MB-503 engine and damaged the transmission's gears. When workers arrived the next morning, they found the Ratte's hull filled with smoke. Repairs would take months. Porsche was furious. He ordered 24-hour guards around the bunker. Dogs patrolled the perimeter. Searchlights scanned the grounds. The Ratte was now a fortress within a fortress. The sabotage gave Porsche time to rethink the project. He had always known the Ratte was flawed. It was too big, too slow, too vulnerable to air attack. Now he proposed a smaller version, the Mouse, weighing 500 tons. It would have thicker armor and a single 128mm main gun. Hitler liked the idea. He agreed to let Porsche split his team. Half would finish the Ratte, half would work on the Mouse. But resources were still scarce. The Ratte's prototype sat in its bunker for months, its hull rusting slightly in the damp air. By 1944, the war was turning against Germany. The Allies had landed in Normandy. The Soviet Union was pushing west, retaking territory lost earlier in the war. Hitler needed a miracle. He ordered the Ratte to be completed. "We need it for the final defense," he told Speer in a June 1944 meeting. "It will hold the line." Speer had no choice. He diverted materials from the Mouse project back to the Ratte. Workers were pulled from other factories. The damaged engine was replaced. The transmission was repaired. The secondary turret was finally installed. By October 1944, the Ratte was nearly complete. On October 20th, 1944, the Ratte was moved to a test range 20 kilometers from Essen. It took 10 hours to transport, using a special rail car built for heavy loads. At the range, the tank was fueled and armed. The crew, 20 Wehrmacht soldiers handpicked for the test, climbed aboard. The engines roared to life. The Ratte moved 5 kilometers across the range, its tracks crushing trees and small buildings in its path. The 280mm guns were fired twice. Each shot shook the ground, but problems emerged quickly. The turret's hydraulic system leaked again. The left front track loosened. The engines overheated after 90 minutes. The crew reported dizziness from carbon monoxide. When the Ratte returned to the bunker, it was clear it was not ready for combat. The Ratte's crew was another concern. The soldiers selected for the test were experienced tankers, but the Ratte was like nothing they had ever operated. The main guns required 2 men to load, one to carry the shell, one to ram it into the breech. The recoil was so powerful that several crew members reported bruised ribs. The turret's slow rotation meant they could not track fast-moving targets. "It's a sitting duck," one sergeant told Porsche after the test. "The enemy will circle us and hit our sides before we can turn." Porsche knew he was right, but there was nothing he could do. The Ratte's design was fixed. By January 1945, the situation was desperate. The Soviet army was approaching Berlin. The Allies were pushing into Germany from the west. Hitler ordered the Rat to be moved to the eastern front. It would be used to defend the Oder River line. But moving the Rat was a logistical nightmare. Roads could not support its weight. Bridges would collapse. Engineers built temporary steel bridges across small rivers. They reinforced roads with concrete slabs. The journey took 2 weeks. When the Rat reached the Oder in early February 1945, it was immediately targeted by Soviet aircraft. Bombs fell around it, but none hit. The Rat's anti-aircraft guns fired back, shooting down one IL to Sturmovik. But the threat was clear. The Rat was a big target. The Rat never saw combat. On April 12, 1945, as Soviet troops closed in on the Oder line, Hitler ordered the Rat to be destroyed. He did not want it falling into enemy hands. German soldiers planted explosives in the hull and turret. The blast was massive. The hull split open. The turret toppled off its ring. When Soviet troops arrived 2 days later, they found a smoldering wreck. The Rat was no more. In the aftermath of the war, the Rat's remains were studied by Allied engineers. They marveled at its size, but noted its flaws. The tank was a technical curiosity, not a practical weapon. Its weight made it immobile. Its slow speed made it vulnerable. Its complexity made it unreliable. It's a masterpiece of engineering, one British engineer wrote in a report. But it's a masterpiece of the wrong kind. The Rat's blueprints survived the war. They were found in Krupp's archives and shipped to the United States. Today, they are stored in the National Archives in Washington, D.C. They serve as a reminder of Nazi Germany's obsession with superweapons and the folly of that obsession. The Rat was never more than a dream of invincibility, a dream that crumbled under the weight of its own ambition. Porsche never forgot the Rat. After the war, he was arrested and charged with war crimes for his work on Nazi weapons. He was acquitted in 1948, but his reputation was tarnished. He went on to design cars, including the iconic Porsche 911, but in interviews late in his life, he would sometimes talk about the Rat. It was a mistake, he admitted. We thought size meant strength. We were wrong. The Rat's legacy is a cautionary one. It shows that even the most ambitious technology cannot overcome poor strategy. It shows that weapons are only as good as their ability to fit into a larger plan. And it shows that pride, Hitler's pride, Germany's pride, can lead to disastrous decisions. Today, only fragments of the Rat remain. A piece of the hull is on display in the Deutsches Technikmuseum in Berlin. A single track links it in the Imperial War Museum in London. These pieces are not just relics of a bygone war. They are reminders of what happens when ambition outstrips reason. The Rat was a monster, but it was a monster without teeth. It never roared in battle. It never crushed an enemy. It simply faded into history, a testament to the danger of believing that bigger is always better.